Billionaire husband caught giving expensive gift to mistress while pregnant wife watches in shock. Glittering city lights always hide secrets behind their brilliance, and this story begins beneath a luminous skyscraper skyline where wealth dances with heartbreak. Alexander Harrington, a name whispered in social circles from Monaco to Manhattan, appears to have it all: a high-powered empire, luxurious homes, and a devoted wife expecting their first child. But everything changes one fateful evening when a single moment shatters the glamorous illusion. Rebecca Harrington stands frozen on a grand staircase, heart pounding and eyes burning, as she witnesses her husband hand an extravagant gift to someone who should never have received it. The stage is set. Rebecca Harrington had grown up imagining a life filled with love, security, and the gentle routines of family. She had never envisioned this glittering world of massive wealth, paparazzi flashed smiles, and private jets. Yet here she was, married to one of the wealthiest men on the planet, Alexander Harrington, the sole heir to the Harrington financial empire. One might say fate thrust her into a life where diamonds were as common as raindrops and socialites discussed foreign policy over champagne flutes. Alexander, or Alex as she called him in private, wasn't just a billionaire. He was born into old money. The Harrington name had decorated philanthropic galas and political fundraising dinners since the early 20th century. Their reach was broad, their power unimaginable to outsiders. For many, it was an intimidating world of tradition and exclusivity. For Rebecca, it was equal parts mesmerizing and alienating. Barely a month ago, tabloids were filled with rumors. The bright headlines heralded Alexander Harrington to be a father. The accompanying photos showed Rebecca, a gentle hand resting on her slightly swollen belly, as she smiled at her husband. She believed that pregnancy might be the final stitch that bound them together. While she and Alex had married 3 years earlier in a breathtaking ceremony in Lake Como, there were moments of distance and subtle tension. Yet each was explained away: the demands of running a billion-dollar conglomerate, social obligations, and philanthropic events that dominated his schedule. There were times, just fleeting moments, where Rebecca sensed Alex drifting. Late-night business meetings, discreet text messages, hushed phone calls in corners of their sprawling penthouse. She questioned him gently about it, and he always offered comforting answers: mergers, acquisitions, corporate restructurings. She told herself it was normal. Billionaire men, especially those at the helm of global enterprises, had bigger responsibilities than most. She tried to accept it, but the seed of doubt never fully left her mind. That was until a single evening changed everything, a night that would see the facade of perfection crumble, leaving behind raw secrets and shocking betrayals. The Harrington fortune might have shielded Alex from many things, but it would not shield him from the storm he had unwittingly unleashed. The early days of Rebecca's pregnancy were tumultuous. Morning sickness arrived in waves, bringing with it sudden fatigue. Alexander, in the beginning, showed a tender concern. He escorted her to doctor's appointments whenever he could manage the time, hired the best obstetricians in New York, and insisted that her every whim be catered to. She was given a personal chef specialized in prenatal nutrition. Their lavish penthouse near Central Park was remodeled to ensure comfort. Rebecca felt cherished. Yet as the months rolled on, Alex's behavior shifted. He spent increasing amounts of time away from home. He justified his absence by pointing to the expansion of Harrington Holdings into emerging markets. Indonesia, the United Arab Emirates, and Kenya, these were places Alex needed to travel to in pursuit of deals that would secure his family's wealth for generations. Rebecca found herself alone more often. Her mother, Elizabeth Townsend, who lived in Connecticut, visited occasionally, but the grand Harrington penthouse often fell silent at night. Rebecca would wander the vast corridors decorated with priceless art, her footsteps echoing on marble floors. She felt lonely. Her longtime friend, Emily Coleman, sensed her isolation and frequently came over to keep her company. Emily was privy to the hours Rebecca spent anxiously waiting for Alex's calls. One particular morning, a gilded envelope appeared in the penthouse mailbox. It bore no return address, only an embossed golden crest that didn't match any of the usual philanthropic events or corporate gatherings. When Rebecca opened it, she found an invitation to an exclusive charity gala hosted by none other than Catherine Webb, an influential socialite rumored to be behind numerous elite gatherings that teetered on the boundary between classy and scandalous. Rebecca was initially inclined to throw the invitation away. She'd heard questionable rumors about Catherine's events. Some guests claimed they had been the most magnificent nights of their lives, while others whispered about the unscrupulous connections formed behind closed doors. But curiosity tugged at Rebecca. She remembered how Alex had once mentioned Catherine's name in passing. Could there be a reason he wanted them to attend? She asked Alex about it that evening, expecting him to dismiss it. Instead, he insisted they go. Catherine is well connected, he said. It's important for Harrington Holdings to stay on her good side. Rebecca found it a bit odd. Rarely did Alex talk about social standing as a necessity. The Harrington name was usually enough to open any door. But she agreed, and that acceptance paved the way for the night Rebecca would come to regret. The night of Catherine Webb's charity gala arrived swiftly. Rebecca, despite her expanding abdomen, went through the motions of dressing to the nines. Her stylist, Valentina, selected a flowing emerald green gown that complemented her pregnancy glow. A diamond necklace glistened at her throat, while her hair was arranged in an elegant updo. She looked stunning, yet her heart felt uneasy. The grand venue was a palatial estate on the outskirts of Manhattan. The gates, tall, wrought iron and ornate, swung open to admit arriving limousines. Rebecca saw glimpses of other high-profile guests stepping onto a lush red carpet. Once they handed their invitations to the tuxedoed attendants, they were whisked into a world of splendor, marble floors, gilded pillars, floral arrangements that rose like towers, and music provided by a live string quartet playing Vivaldi. Inside, they were greeted by Catherine Webb herself, a tall, raven-haired woman with an elegant air. Catherine had a practiced smile that seemed both welcoming and guarded. She greeted Alex and Rebecca as if they were dear friends and introduced them to the who's who of New York's elite. Rebecca was polite, but her focus kept shifting to Alex. He appeared distracted, scanning the crowd as if searching for someone. At last, the trio broke away from the throng. Catherine guided them through lavishly decorated corridors. Oil paintings of aristocrats hung on the walls, and every piece of furniture looked antique and priceless. Eventually, they reached an opulent lounge area where a quieter, more exclusive group was gathered. Rebecca found it bizarre. She recognized some of the faces, CEOs, celebrities, and heirs. Yet it was the new face in the crowd that stirred something in her gut. A woman, strikingly beautiful, stood in the corner. Her hair was a cascade of auburn waves, and she wore a sleek crimson gown that clung to her figure. As Alex's eyes landed on this woman, a flicker of recognition crossed his face. He nodded slightly, almost as if acknowledging an unspoken understanding. Catherine soon left them to mingle, and Alex guided Rebecca towards the bar to fetch her a non-alcoholic cocktail. But his attention kept wandering. Rebecca, alert and sensitive that night, watched his gaze rest on the mysterious woman in red. Each time she caught him looking, he quickly averted his eyes. Throughout the evening, guests floated by, showering them with congratulations on the pregnancy. Some inquired about the future heir or heiress to the Harrington empire. Still, Rebecca's mind kept drifting to that woman in red. She wondered why Alex seemed both drawn to and anxious about her presence. She tried to dismiss her suspicions, attributing them to pregnancy hormones, but the sense of foreboding wouldn't leave her. As midnight approached, Rebecca grew weary. She found a seat near the large veranda that overlooked immaculate gardens. A fountain sparkled under moonlight, its waters dancing. She rested her hand on her belly, hoping to calm the swirling unease. Suddenly she spotted Alex, alone near a colonnade, speaking in hushed tones with the woman in red. The woman's name, as Rebecca had learned from whispered introductions, was Celeste. Something about their posture leaning in close, the intense eye contact, told Rebecca more than any rumor. She felt the tiny movements of her unborn child, as if the baby sensed her mother's distress. And for the first time, a painful realization surfaced. Perhaps Alex was not the perfect husband she had believed him to be. In the days following the gala, Rebecca tried to rationalize what she'd seen. Yes, Alex had been talking to Celeste. Yes, it seemed intimate in some way. But maybe it was business-related or philanthropic. She reminded herself that Alex often formed unexpected alliances to further his company's goals. And yet, try as she might, she couldn't shake the image of Celeste's eyes flashing with a hidden confidence and of Alex looking caught between guilt and longing. The nights were the hardest. Alex arrived home later than usual, offering only vague answers about negotiations in Tokyo or important Zoom calls with Middle Eastern partners. The penthouse corridors felt colder, and Rebecca found herself crying without reason. She wrote it off as hormones, but Emily Coleman, who visited daily, saw right through her facade. One morning, as Rebecca sipped herbal tea in the bright sunroom, Emily confronted her. "Becca, you haven't been yourself," Emily said, placing a gentle hand on Rebecca's arm. "Is something going on with Alex?" Rebecca hesitated. She wasn't one to air her marital insecurities, especially to friends, but Emily was practically family. They had grown up together. "I might be overreacting," Rebecca began, her voice trembling. "At the charity gala, Alex was talking to this woman. Her name's Celeste. I don't know, Em. Something just felt off." Emily frowned. "Have you asked him about her?" Rebecca shook her head. "No, I don't even know where to start." Emily offered her support, urging her to speak openly with Alex. But each time Rebecca tried, she lost her courage. She told herself she didn't want to seem like a paranoid wife, especially now that she was pregnant and emotions were heightened. Still, the seed of doubt kept growing. Every missed call or short text from Alex fueled her suspicions. Late at night, her mind circled back to images of Celeste. A single question haunted her. Who exactly was this woman? And why did Alex seem bound to her? One quiet Sunday, Rebecca decided to investigate on her own. She felt guilty for prying, but the ache of uncertainty had become unbearable. Alex was away at a conference in Washington, D.C. She slipped into his private study, a place where he kept business documents, old family records, and personal memorabilia. The large mahogany desk dominated the room, flanked by shelves lined with leather-bound books and framed certificates of philanthropic accomplishments. Rebecca began opening drawers methodically. She found the usual spreadsheets, files on real estate acquisitions, pending deals. Then she stumbled upon a folder labeled Monaco. Inside were receipts for a luxury property, referencing a lavish seaside apartment. This was not unusual. Alex frequently invested in prime real estate around the world. But a smaller envelope caught her eye. It contained an invoice for a piece of exquisite jewelry from Cartier in Paris, worth a staggering sum. The recipient's name, Celeste Langford. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought she might faint. The date on the invoice was only a month prior. It explained Alex's business trip to Europe, which he had claimed was for a crucial deal in Berlin. But why was he in Paris buying jewelry for Celeste? The walls seemed to close in on Rebecca. She recalled the hush of the penthouse halls, the countless nights she had spent worrying about him. Now a piece of undeniable evidence lay in her trembling hands. The man she trusted, the father of her unborn child, had purchased a breathtakingly expensive gift for a woman she barely knew. Tears blurred her vision. She fought to stay calm, reminding herself that this might still be a misunderstanding. But it felt like a stone-cold truth. Her husband was not just talking to another woman, he was showering her with lavish gifts. Rebecca spent the rest of that Sunday in turmoil. She reached for her phone multiple times to call Alex, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. Every possible scenario played out in her head, from him denying everything to him, admitting it freely. By the time Alex returned late Sunday night, Rebecca had made a decision. She had to confront him. She could no longer live in suspicion. When he walked through the door, suit jacket draped over his arm, exhaustion etched into his face, Rebecca was waiting in the living room. He could sense her tension immediately. Her hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, revealing red-rimmed eyes. Something was very wrong. He set his briefcase down. "Rebecca, what's going on?" She took a deep breath. "I found this." She handed him the invoice from Cartier, her voice unsteady. "Is there something you want to tell me?" The color drained from Alex's face. His eyes flicked from the paper to her belly, then back to her tearful gaze. An internal struggle played out on his features as he realized the gravity of the moment. "Rebecca," he began carefully, "it's not what you think." Her voice wavered with barely contained anguish. "Then explain it to me. Why did you buy a Cartier piece for Celeste Langford?" He opened his mouth, closed it, and let out a heavy sigh. "Celeste. She's an acquaintance with certain connections we needed for an international deal. I promised her a gift if she came through for us. It was just a gesture." Rebecca stared at him. "Do you think I'm a fool?" She reached up to wipe the tears sliding down her cheeks. "You've been distant, absent, and now this. Are you having an affair?" His protest was immediate. "No, Rebecca." He stopped, searching for words, perhaps trying to salvage some measure of truth he could offer without destroying her further. She took in his silence, her pulse roaring in her ears. Finally, he said, "She became involved in ways I didn't anticipate. I had to keep her happy for business reasons. That's all." Rebecca's mind spun. Was he really trying to justify buying a secret gift for another woman as a business expense? The betrayal she felt was overwhelming, but part of her clung to the hope he might be telling the truth. She turned away, hugging herself. "Alex, I'm pregnant with your child. Do you understand what you're doing to us?" His eyes closed briefly, and he exhaled. "I'm sorry, Rebecca. I love you and our future baby. I've made some bad choices." She pressed him further, but he yielded few concrete answers. Each explanation felt half-baked, a mix of partial truths and deflections. By the end of the night, they were left with a fractured truce. Rebecca insisted he end whatever relationship he had with Celeste, business or otherwise, and Alex agreed. But the seeds of distrust had already been sown, and they were rapidly taking root. In the weeks that followed, Rebecca tried to repair her marriage. She believed in second chances. She told herself that her pregnancy was reason enough to fight for their relationship. Alex seemed to make an effort. He checked in on her more frequently, spent evenings at home, and even took a brief holiday with her in the Hamptons for some rest. Despite his newfound attentiveness, Rebecca sensed an undercurrent of tension. She noticed how he would sometimes stare off into the distance, weighed down by unspoken anxieties. Late at night, when he thought she was asleep, he would tiptoe out of bed to take phone calls in the study. She lay awake, the emptiness beside her, a stark reminder that something remained amiss. Emily Coleman noticed too. She visited the Hamptons beach house one sunny afternoon to lift Rebecca's spirits. They strolled along the shoreline, their footprints trailing behind them in the wet sand. The wind carried the tang of salt water, while the gentle crash of waves provided a soothing background. But peace eluded Rebecca's mind. "He says he ended it. She confided, hugging herself as the breeze picked up. "But I can still feel this presence, like Celeste is always lurking in the background." Emily frowned. "Do you think they're still seeing each other?" Rebecca hesitated. "He swears he's done, that it was just a mistake, and he's cutting all ties. But the way he is sometimes, it's like a part of him is missing." Emily hugged her friend, offering words of reassurance. Yet the question lingered. Was Alex truly free from Celeste's hold, or was this simply a calm before the storm? Life resumed a semblance of normalcy, at least on the surface. Rebecca's baby bump was more pronounced, and she started preparing for the baby's arrival, decorating the nursery, interviewing potential nannies, scheduling prenatal yoga sessions. She clung to these small joys, hoping they would anchor her mind away from fear. One afternoon she was browsing her phone for baby clothes when a message popped up from an unknown number. The text read, "You deserve to know the truth about your husband. Meet me at the Mandarin Oriental rooftop bar at 8 p.m. Come alone." Her heart raced. She showed Emily, who cautioned her to ignore it. But curiosity and desperation consumed Rebecca. She needed closure. She needed to know if Alex's betrayal went deeper than she imagined. That evening, Rebecca slipped out with a driver. She felt a mixture of dread and hope, hoping against hope that she might discover a misunderstanding or a clue that could finally set her mind at ease. The Mandarin Oriental's rooftop bar glowed with city lights. She took a seat at a secluded corner table, scanning the glamorous patrons. Moments later, a young man approached. He introduced himself as James Wilder, a junior associate at a private investigative firm. "I've been following Celeste Langford," he said quietly, casting wary glances around them. "I was hired by a client who suspected she might target certain powerful men." Rebecca's mouth went dry. "Target them?" James nodded gravely. "She finds wealthy men, ingratiates herself, and then uses certain vulnerabilities to blackmail them. It's a pattern. She's done it before in Dubai, London, and Hong Kong. But she's careful. Few people know about it, and most men choose to pay her off to avoid scandal." Rebecca's head spun. If Alex was one of Celeste's victims, had his involvement been coerced? Or had he willingly fallen into her trap? She pressed James for more. He handed her an envelope filled with photos of Celeste with various men politicians, executives, even a Saudi prince. Some pictures featured men handing Celeste expensive gifts. In others, she sipped champagne. The men gazing at her with infatuation. A swirl of conflicting emotions tore through Rebecca. Rage at Alex for lying, fear of a potential scandal that could destroy the Harrington name, and a twisted sense of relief that perhaps Alex hadn't simply thrown away their marriage out of lust. Still, if he was being blackmailed, why hadn't he told her? "Thank you," she managed to whisper to James. "I appreciate your coming to me with this." He gave a sympathetic nod. "I know you're pregnant. You deserve the truth. Just be careful. Celeste is powerful in ways that aren't obvious." The ride back to the penthouse was long and silent. Rebecca's reflection stared back at her in the tinted car window, haunted and exhausted. She clutched the envelope with shaking hands, mind reeling from what she had just learned. If Celeste was blackmailing Alex, it could explain the expensive Cartier purchase, the secrecy, the sudden shift in his demeanor. It could also mean that more revelations, devastating ones, lay ahead. She needed to confront her husband again, but this time with the new information in her possession. Deep down, she prayed that Alex would confirm the story. Perhaps this was all a sinister extortion plot, and her husband had been trying to protect her from the ugliness. Yet the memory of their confrontation still burned in her mind. He had promised that his ties to Celeste were severed, and if that was true, then why hadn't he told her about the blackmail? Or was there still more he wasn't telling her? Rebecca found Alex in his study upon returning. It was late, and he had the look of a man waging an internal war, his tie undone, his usually immaculate hair slightly disheveled. She closed the study door behind her and set the envelope on his desk with trembling hands. His eyes flicked to the envelope. "What is this?" he asked warily. "Photos of Celeste Langford with other men she's conned," Rebecca replied, her voice tight. "I met someone tonight who showed me. Care to explain?" Alex picked up the photographs, flipping through them, his jaw tense. "Where did you get these?" Her eyes brimmed with tears. "Why won't you just tell me the truth? Is she blackmailing you? Did she threaten you? Our family's reputation?" He stared at the photos for a few moments before letting out a shaky exhale. "Yes," he said finally, "she's been blackmailing me. I knew her initially through business introductions. She positioned herself as a consultant who could secure critical connections for one of our expansions. At first, it was purely professional, but then she started to seduce me. She hinted at releasing damaging rumors if I didn't comply. I panicked." Rebecca's heart cracked a little more. "You should have told me. We could have handled it together. How far did it go between you two?" He couldn't meet her eyes. "There was one night in Monaco after a series of meetings. I was vulnerable, tired. She manipulated the situation. He paused, swallowing hard. We were intimate. Her entire body went cold. She had suspected it, but hearing it felt like a knife twisting in her chest. And you just kept buying her off so she wouldn't spill the affair?" He nodded, shame written across his face. "That was the Cartier piece. I feared she might use pictures, messages, anything to destroy our marriage and my business. I only wanted to protect you." For a long moment, the only sound in the room was Rebecca's ragged breathing. She stared at the man she married, the father of her unborn child, struggling to reconcile the gentle, caring lover she once knew with the one who had been unfaithful. Yes, he might have been a victim of Celeste's manipulations, but he also made his own choices. Finally, she said, "We need to end this, Alex. Now. You must cut her off completely and face whatever consequences come. We'll handle this together, but no more lies." He reached for her hand. She hesitated but allowed him to hold it. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "You and our baby mean everything to me." Yet as tears blurred Rebecca's vision, she couldn't help questioning whether their relationship could ever be the same. The betrayal, the deception, had carved a wound deep in her soul, and she suspected Celeste's influence might run even deeper than Alex realized. Days turned into weeks, and a tense atmosphere settled over the penthouse. Rebecca and Alex tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, attending doctor's appointments together, meeting with their interior designer to finalize the nursery, but an invisible wall separated them. Alex claimed he had cut all ties with Celeste. He cancelled her consulting contract, severed personal contact, and even changed his phone number. Yet Rebecca couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Something in her gut told her Celeste wasn't one to walk away so easily. Late one night, Rebecca's phone buzzed. The message was from an unknown number. Her heartbeat quickened. She feared it might be Celeste, or perhaps the investigator again. But what she found was worse. A photo of Alex and Celeste embracing in a luxurious bedroom. The timestamp on the photo was from last week. Her world spun. Last week, Alex told her he was in Boston for a meeting. Had he lied again? She locked herself in the bedroom, tears streaming, replaying the nights Alex had come home late, the smell of perfume on his shirt she once dismissed as a chance encounter. Overcome by anger and heartbreak, she marched to Alex's study, phone in hand. She thrust the image in his face. "Explain this." Alex gaped at the photo, color draining from his cheeks. "That's not from last week," he insisted. "I haven't seen Celeste since I told you I ended it. She must be sending you old pictures, forging timestamps to destroy us." Rebecca wanted to believe him, but her anguish made her question everything. If that's true, then how did she get my personal number? "You said you cut all ties. Maybe you told her. Maybe you've been in contact this whole time." He looked gutted. "Rebecca, please. I swear I'm telling the truth." "She's twisting the knife. She wants you to leave me. She wants me vulnerable so she can push me for more money." Rebecca stood there, her entire body trembling. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Alex." The baby kicked inside her, a reminder of the life she was fighting to protect. In the end, she fled the study without another word. She needed time to think. Could Celeste really be that malicious, forging timestamps just to wreck their marriage? Or was Alex lying once again, covering a second betrayal? The heartbreak felt like a bottomless pit. Desperate for clarity, Rebecca contacted James Wilder, the private investigator who had first revealed Celeste's blackmail activities. They met in a small cafe near Bryant Park, far from the penthouse's watchful staff. James confirmed that Celeste was indeed capable of digital manipulations, forging or altering timestamps on photos. "She's done it before," he said gravely, "to extort bigger payouts." As Rebecca listened, her shoulders sagged with a kind of exhausted relief. Maybe Alex was telling the truth this time. But James also warned her, Celeste rarely stops when she finds a lucrative target. She's cunning. If you truly want her out of your lives, you'll need something powerful to hold over her, or a very public confrontation that renders her blackmail useless. Rebecca shuddered. The idea of a public scandal, especially in their high-profile world, terrified her. Yet the alternative might be an endless cycle of extortion. James offered a plan, gathered definitive proof of Celeste's manipulations, audio recordings, hacked timestamps, something incontrovertible, then threatened to expose her if she didn't back down. "It's risky," he admitted, "but it might be the only way to end this." The baby kicked again, as if in protest against the stress. Rebecca felt protective, determined. She was not going to let Celeste ruin her child's future. "I'll talk to Alex," she said softly, "and see if he's willing to fight back." When Rebecca returned to the penthouse, she found Alex waiting anxiously in the living room. He looked haggard, as though haunted by sleepless nights. She recounted her meeting with James, then proposed the plan to trap Celeste. Alex listened, nodding. "I'm done letting her hold me hostage. We'll do whatever it takes." Together, they reached out to James to set the trap. The idea was simple. Celeste would be approached by a representative of Alex's, offering her one final payout if she provided all incriminating materials. This meeting would be secretly recorded. If Celeste bragged about forging evidence or admitted to blackmail, they would have enough to threaten legal action against her. Even if they couldn't press charges, they could scare her into backing off. Rebecca felt conflicted about the scheme. It was dangerous. Celeste was a master manipulator, and if she sensed the trap, she might unleash a torrent of scandalous revelations. But there seemed no other choice. The alternative was living in fear and suspicion forever. They decided the meeting would occur in a hotel suite at the Four Seasons, a neutral location. Alex wouldn't attend, to avoid alarming Celeste. Instead, they recruited one of Alex's trusted lawyers, Benjamin Reyes, to act as the intermediary. Benjamin was known for his unwavering loyalty to the Harrington family. He'd seen his fair share of corporate showdowns and was ready to protect Alex's interests. Tiny microphones were hidden around the suite. A camera disguised as a lamp would capture the encounter. Rebecca stayed at the penthouse, waiting, her stomach in knots. On the night of the rendezvous, Alex paced restlessly across the living room, checking his phone every few seconds. Eventually, a message arrived from Benjamin. "She's here." Rebecca and Alex stared at each other, hearts pounding. If the plan succeeded, Celeste's hold over them might be broken. If it failed, she could retaliate with everything she had. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, another text came. "She's suspicious. Trying to negotiate for more money. I'm proceeding as planned." Rebecca drew in a shaky breath, imagining Celeste's seductive voice, the same voice that had ensnared Alex. She pictured the hidden camera, capturing every calculated flick of Celeste's hair, every cunning smile. Then the longest silence of their lives descended. Half an hour passed. Alex wanted to call Benjamin, but that might blow the operation. Another 10 minutes ticked by. Rebecca, who was nearly 8 months pregnant, clutched her belly for support, praying for strength. Finally, Alex's phone buzzed. All done. She left, sending footage soon. Relief surged through them, but also dread for what the recording might reveal. An hour later, Benjamin arrived at the penthouse with an encrypted USB drive. Rebecca insisted on watching the footage, though Alex worried it would upset her. Still, she needed to see the woman who had tormented them. They gathered in Alex's study, drawing the curtains to ensure absolute privacy. Benjamin inserted the USB into the laptop and pressed play. The hidden camera angle was wide enough to show Benjamin and Celeste sitting in armchairs across a small glass coffee table. Celeste's beauty was even more striking up close. She wore a sleek black dress that highlighted her every curve. Her voice was cool and poised as she spoke. "So, Alex is finally offering a real payoff?" she purred, flicking her hair. Benjamin maintained a professional tone. "He's prepared to offer a significant sum, provided you relinquish all incriminating evidence, photos, messages, videos, and sign an agreement stating you will never contact him or his family again." Celeste leaned forward, a predatory smile curving her lips. "You know, blackmail is such an ugly word. Let's call it compensation for my services." Rebecca's throat tightened as she heard Celeste speak so casually, reducing her betrayal and the heartbreak inflicted upon a pregnant woman to a financial transaction. Benjamin pressed on. "We need guarantees that you won't forge or tamper with additional content." This must be the end. Celeste rolled her eyes, sipping from a glass of water. "I'm not an idiot. Once I have my money, I'll be out of Alex's life forever. I've already done enough to scare his little wife with those photos." She smirked. "A shame, really. I have so much more." There, it was a blatant admission of forging evidence and using it to torment them. Rebecca's chest constricted. She saw Alex's hands curl into fists at his sides. Benjamin deftly guided her into elaborating. "So, the photo you sent to Miss S. Harrington was fake," she smiled. "It was an old picture from Monaco that I saved on my phone. A little digital alteration to the date stamp, and voila, instant heartbreak. You'd be amazed at how easy it is to destroy trust with just a few clicks." Rebecca felt a wave of nausea. The cruelty in Celeste's words was almost more than she could bear, yet she also felt a flicker of relief. They had her on record, admitting to forging evidence. The conversation went on, Celeste haggling over the sum, demanding more. Eventually, Benjamin ended the meeting, promising that Alex's team would be in touch. When the video stopped, the room fell silent. Benjamin looked at Rebecca with concern, but she mustered a steady gaze. "Thank you," she said. "This will help us." Alex turned to his lawyer. "We'll use this as leverage to ensure she stays away. I don't care how much hush money it costs. I just want her gone." Benjamin nodded, though he seemed uneasy. "Blackmailers can be relentless, even when cornered. We have evidence of her wrongdoing, but she may still have other ways to retaliate." Are you prepared for that? Alex exchanged a look with Rebecca. They both knew their lives would never be the same, but they had come too far to retreat now. The next morning, Alex had his legal team draft a cease and desist letter, along with a proposed settlement. Celeste would receive a final payment in exchange for turning over every trace of incriminating material and signing a legally binding agreement never to contact the Harringtons again. Additionally, Alex's lawyers prepared copies of the recorded footage to send to law enforcement if Celeste attempted any more extortion. Meanwhile, Rebecca braced herself. She didn't trust Celeste to give up so easily. Even with the evidence stacked against her, Celeste seemed to thrive on chaos. But the letter was delivered by a courier that same afternoon, along with an unspoken ultimatum: try anything else, and you'll be facing criminal charges. For 2 days, there was no response. Rebecca was terrified Celeste might suddenly appear or release a salacious story to the tabloids. But on the 3rd day, an envelope arrived. It contained a signed agreement from Celeste, an assurance that she would keep her distance, plus a final request for funds to be transferred into a Swiss account. Alex's attorneys arranged the payment under strict legal oversight, and just like that, Celeste Langford vanished from their lives, or so it appeared. With Celeste seemingly out of the picture, Rebecca and Alex tried to move forward. Yet the damage lingered beneath the surface. They attended couples therapy at the advice of their family counselor, Dr. Harriet Lewis. Sessions were grueling. Alex confessed his guilt, recalling how he had become entangled in Celeste's trap. Rebecca, meanwhile, confronted her own feelings of betrayal, struggling to forgive him. As the weeks wore on, the tension between them began to ease, replaced by a cautious hope. Alex was more present than ever, cooking breakfast for Rebecca, accompanying her to every prenatal checkup, and reading parenting books late into the night. Rebecca found moments of genuine closeness returning. He would lay his head against her belly, speaking softly to their unborn baby. She often ran her fingers through his hair, remembering why she fell in love with him in the first place. There were times she woke in the night, still consumed by panic that Celeste might reappear. But morning would bring reassurance as Alex smiled at her, inviting her to share in the day's small joys. She decided to trust him once again, a tentative, fragile trust that rested on the promise of a better future. As Rebecca neared her due date, her mother, Elizabeth Townsend, along with Emily Coleman, organized a lavish baby shower at the Harringtons' Hamptons estate. Despite the underlying strains, they aimed to create a joyous celebration. The guest list featured close friends, family, and a few notable figures from the philanthropic world. The estate's garden was transformed with pastel decorations, balloons, and a dessert table loaded with sweet treats. Sunlight filtered through the towering oaks, while classical music played in the background. Rebecca wore a flowing white maternity dress, radiating a glow that many remarked upon. She moved around greeting guests, trying to soak in the positivity of the moment. For a day, at least, she wanted to forget the nightmares that had consumed her recent months. Alexander, too, appeared genuinely happy. He stayed by Rebecca's side, guiding her between social clusters, ensuring she had a chair whenever she felt tired, and proudly showing off the ultrasound pictures to anyone interested. Watching him so attentive and caring, Rebecca felt the stirrings of love again. Yet amidst the laughter and gifts, a subtle tension lingered. Curious eyes whispered among themselves, "I heard rumors about him and another woman. Is she doing okay? Do you think it's all for show?" Such is the cost of wealth and fame. No secret stays buried for long, and in high society, speculation always simmers beneath polished smiles. Still, for that afternoon, the Harringtons projected an image of unity, and for Rebecca, the baby shower was a hopeful promise of better days to come. Weeks passed without any sign of Celeste. Rebecca breathed easier, focusing on her final trimester. She and Alex prepared for the arrival of their baby, finalizing the nursery with a soft safari theme and purchasing everything from designer strollers to organic cotton onesies. Then, one quiet evening, just as Rebecca was drifting off, Alex's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He answered groggily, and a sudden tension stiffened his posture. Rebecca sat up, alarmed. "Who is it?" she whispered. He pressed the phone to his chest, eyes wide. "It's the building security downstairs. Someone is insisting on seeing me. They say it's urgent." Rebecca's pulse spiked. "Is it Celeste?" Alex shook his head. "They said it's her assistant, a woman named Ariana. She claims she has critical information for me." Despite Rebecca's protest, Alex felt compelled to go down to the lobby. He reassured her he would handle it. She sank against the pillows, anxiety gnawing at her. Moments later, he returned, perplexed, holding a small envelope. "Ariana said Celeste was in trouble," he explained, "and she wanted me to have this." He opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a single piece of paper with a handwritten note. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me for everything." See, Rebecca and Alex exchanged uncertain glances. Was this another ploy or a genuine apology from Celeste? The following morning, Ariana called Alex's phone directly. Rebecca sat beside him on the sofa, holding his hand tightly as he put the call on speaker. Ariana's voice trembled. "Mr. Harrington, the first work for Celeste. She's been forced to flee after crossing dangerous people in Hong Kong. Some dealings went bad. She wanted to let you know she's leaving New York, possibly for good." That note was her goodbye. Rebecca felt a swirl of conflicting emotions, relief that Celeste might be gone, suspicion that this was yet another trick. "Why tell us?" she asked sharply. Ariana paused. She felt remorse. "That's all I know. She told me if anything happened to her, I should deliver that note. She said she truly never wanted to hurt you both so badly, but circumstances forced her hand." The line went quiet, leaving Rebecca and Alex dumbfounded. They asked for more details, but Ariana claimed ignorance. She only knew Celeste was in real danger and was vanishing to protect herself. When the call ended, Rebecca's hand shook in Alex's. Could this truly be the end? Had Celeste's own network turned on her, forcing her to abandon her schemes? Or was this some grand manipulation designed to foster pity? Regardless, Celeste's abrupt exit seemed genuine, and for the first time in months, the Harringtons dared to hope they were finally free from her shadow. With Celeste seemingly out of their lives, Rebecca and Alex concentrated on the imminent arrival of their baby. There was a new tenderness in the way Alex looked at his wife, a silent vow to protect the life they were building. And though Rebecca still bore scars from his betrayal, she found herself able to breathe again. Their couples therapy continued, delving deeper into honesty and open communication. Alex laid bare his insecurities, how he felt pressured to protect his family's empire at all costs, leading him to disastrous decisions. Rebecca shared the emotional toll of feeling alone in a marriage that was supposed to be her sanctuary. Strangely, confronting these vulnerabilities brought them closer. They laughed again over simple things, the baby's first kicks, the comedic attempts at assembling the crib, the loving jokes about baby names. On some evenings, they would cuddle on the sofa and watch old movies, comforting each other with the familiar warmth of domestic life. The moment finally arrived in a swirl of chaos and excitement. Rebecca went into labor in the early morning hours, her water breaking just after midnight. Alex rushed her to the hospital, both exhilarated and terrified. Nurses and doctors hurried them into a private suite, the hum of medical equipment and the faint smell of disinfectant filling the air. Labor was long and grueling, but Rebecca remained resilient. Alex never left her side, stroking her hair, whispering encouragement, and pressing cold compresses to her forehead. Every so often, he would catch her eye, and a flood of love passed between them, love that had survived the worst storms and still found a way to endure. After nearly 20 hours, a piercing cry filled the room. A baby girl emerged, healthy and strong, her tiny fists clenched as she wailed her arrival into the world. The doctor announced, "It's a girl," and handed her to Rebecca. Tears streamed down Rebecca's cheeks. Alex held his wife and child in his arms, overwhelmed by a joy that erased every sorrow he had ever felt. In that moment, all the heartbreak, all the nights of suspicion and betrayal fell away under the bright, pure force of new life. They named her Grace Elizabeth Harrington, and as they gazed at her pink cheeks and wispy hair, they vowed to protect her together, no matter the cost. The weeks following Grace's birth were a blur of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and feedings, but also tender bonding moments. Rebecca experienced a range of emotions: exhaustion, elation, and at times residual pain from the memories of betrayal. However, each time she felt fear or resentment creeping in, she looked at her newborn daughter, remembering why she fought so hard for her family. Alex immersed himself in fatherhood with a passion that surprised even him. He rearranged his work schedule, delegating more responsibilities to his trusted executives. Late nights with Grace in his arms replaced late nights negotiating deals. In those quiet hours, father and daughter forged a bond that overshadowed all else. Bit by bit, Rebecca's trust in Alex deepened. She watched him choose family over fortune, watched him handle the occasional flash of gossip with calm composure, never losing sight of what was most important. And in her heart, she forgave him not for the sake of appearances, but because she believed in the man he had become through his penance. 3 months later, when Grace was just beginning to smile, the Harringtons hosted a charity event to celebrate a new wing at the Children's Hospital, funded by Alex's foundation. The media turned out in droves, curious to see the Harrington family publicly after months of whispered controversies. Rebecca wore a graceful lavender gown, Alexander in a tailored charcoal suit. They looked every bit the loving couple and philanthropists they aspired to be. Little Grace remained at home with a nanny, but her presence was felt in every philanthropic speech they made. During his address to the crowd, Alex spoke about the importance of family, the value of love, and lessons learned from mistakes that money could never fix. Though he never mentioned Celeste or the scandal outright, there was an undeniable undercurrent of reflection in his words. At the end, Alex surprised Rebecca and the entire audience by announcing that half the proceeds from his next major business venture would be donated to maternal health programs worldwide. Gasps of astonishment rippled through the crowd. Rebecca's eyes widened with admiration, tears gathering as she realized how profoundly Alex had transformed. The applause thundered, echoing the new direction of their lives, from tragedy and betrayal to redemption and hope. In the months that followed, the Harrington household found its rhythm. Grace grew rapidly, giggling at her parents' silly faces. Rebecca embraced motherhood fully, though she kept her philanthropic interests alive, inspired by her own experiences to focus on helping vulnerable pregnant women. Alex's empire continued to thrive, but he no longer let the demands of power eclipse his family. He delegated more and spent weekends at home. On some Sundays, he, Rebecca, and Grace took long drives upstate, escaping the city's ceaseless pulse for quieter, simpler pleasures. Emily Coleman, who had stood by Rebecca through the darkest times, became Grace's godmother. She would often remark on the dramatic changes she observed in the Harringtons, marveling at how love could triumph over even the most shocking betrayals. There were still moments when Rebecca flashed back to the agony she felt, recalling the sight of that Cartier invoice or the photograph Celeste had fabricated. But each time she reminded herself that healing was an ongoing process, not a single event. One crisp autumn morning, Alex and Rebecca strolled through Central Park with Grace in a pram. The leaves, painted in reds and golds, drifted around them, carried by a gentle breeze. As they paused by a serene pond, Grace cooed happily, reaching for a stray leaf. Rebecca leaned her head on Alex's shoulder. "We made it," she said softly. "Through everything." He placed a tender kiss on her forehead. "We did, and I'm never taking us for granted again." In the distance, a group of paparazzi snapped photos, but the Harringtons no longer flinched. They had nothing left to hide or fear. Their story had been battered by scandal, heartbreak, and manipulation. Yet here they stood, stronger than ever. A text appeared on Rebecca's phone, another message from James Wilder. He was simply checking in, making sure everything was still peaceful. She typed back a grateful reply, then slipped the phone away. There was no sign of Celeste, no new threats or demands. Perhaps she truly had fled, never to return. Rebecca inhaled the crisp air, a smile touching her lips. As she, Alex, and baby Grace continued their leisurely walk, she realized something profound. Trials could either break a couple or forge them into something more resilient, more compassionate. For the Harringtons, the crisis had ultimately led them to face their darkest fears. Emerging on the other side, scarred but unbroken, they were, in every sense, a family reborn. For those who followed every twist of this harrowing journey, the Harrington story is a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and unwavering determination. Scandal and betrayal nearly tore this family apart, but they discovered the strength to rebuild, guided by a promise to protect each other and the daughter who became their guiding light. Each step toward healing required vulnerability, tough conversations, and the courage to defy whispered rumors in high society. No secret remains hidden forever, and sometimes it takes a fierce storm to reveal what truly matters. If you found yourself swept up by this drama, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. Let us know how you felt about Celeste's schemes, Alexander's redemption, and Rebecca's incredible resilience. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more captivating tales, and spread the word to friends who crave real-life drama fiction.